Moment number 1. When two Italian city-states went to war over a bucket. Hey, hold on, that sounds familiar. Okay, so in the 12th century, Italy was just a bunch of city-states, and two of them, Modena and Bologna, Bologna, really did not like each other. In 1309, Passerino Bonaclosi became the elected leader of Modena. Now, the Pope did not like this guy very much, so he said anyone who went to war with him would get the indulgences of a crusader, aka get out of hell free card. So that gave him some enemies. Starting around 1324, both sides had small border skirmishes and raiding of each other's lands. So with all this going on, some Modenese soldiers slipped into Bologna and stole a bucket which they filled with loot and gold taken from the city. The Bolognese demanded the return of the bucket when they got wind of what happened, and Modena was just like, screw you, so then Bologna just declared war. The Bolognese had raised an army of 32,000, while the Modenese can only raise 7,000, so the Bolognese were pretty sure they'd win. So when the first battle of the war broke out in Zappolino, the Bolognese were utterly defeated and were routed back to their city walls. The Modenese then decided to take another bucket from outside the city as a trophy. Today the bucket is still kept in Modena and is in an exhibit open to the public. Moment number 2. In 1587, 115 English settlers landed on Roanoke Island, off the coast of modern-day North Carolina. Though things didn't exactly go well for them, so about a year later they sent their governor, John White, back to England so he could organize a relief mission. So John gets back to England just in time for war to break out with Spain, which prevented him from returning to the Roanoke colony until about 2 years later. But when he finally arrived back, the entire colony was deserted, and the only clue as to what happened to them was a tree with Croatan, which was the name of a nearby native tribe carved into it. The most likely explanation is that the residents assimilated into the tribe, or that they were killed by them, or spooky ghosts. Moment number 3. So the Mongol leader Kublai Khan had been going on a rampage through Asia and just finished conquering Korea. So logically the next step was to hop on over to Japan and conquer it. So in 1266, Kublai sent a letter addressed to the leader of a small country, saying, pay tribute, or we will kill all of you. But the Mongols never even got an answer, as a Japanese shogun wouldn't even let the Mongol emissaries' ships land. What a mad lad. But while this might seem badass on the part of the Japanese, provoking a much larger neighbor never ends well. Kublai commissioned a fleet of 600 ships and raised 40,000 soldiers to invade Japan. The Mongols set out in autumn of 1274 and landed in Hakata Bay and pretty much decisively defeated the Japanese there. At nightfall, the Japanese retreated a few miles inland, hoping to revive their hopeless defense in the morning, all while heavy wind and rain began to set in. Meanwhile, the sailors on the Mongol ships convinced the generals to let them weigh anchor further out to sea since they thought the high wind would drive their ships aground in the bay. And then they sailed straight into a typhoon and got wiped out. But the Mongols were not ready to throw in the towel yet, so it was pretty clear then to the Mongols that they had to try and invade for a second time. So in 1281, the Mongols once again set sail for Japan, though this time with 2 separate fleets. The smaller First Fleet, who had departed from Korea, got there with the Chinese fleet nowhere to be seen, and started the assault anyways. But this time the Japanese were pretty prepared, so things turned into a stalemate. But 50 days later, the larger main fleet arrived, and it looked like Japan's days were numbered, until they got hit by a typhoon. Moment number 4. On October 14th, 1912, Theodore Roosevelt was due to give a speech in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for his election campaign. So he gets up on the podium, and then he gets shot in the chest. But the bullet had a copy of his speech in his jacket pocket, which slowed it down, preventing it from hitting his lung. So instead of going to hospital like any other person would do, he says, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know whether you fully understand that I've just been shot, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose. And then goes on to give a full 84-minute speech before actually leaving to go to the hospital. The guy who shot him, John Fleming Schrank, was kind of a wacko, and when he was later interviewed, he said he shot him because he was instructed to by the ghost of President William McKinley. Moment number 5. Okay, Hitler, we see you've been remilitarizing the Rhineland and taking back parts of Germany you lost in the Treaty of Versailles. We agree to look past this as long as you promise not to invade Poland. Okay. Special thanks to patrons Skylar Weston, Ben Hughes, Zy Mandez,